Good evening, everyone. This is Roberto Dillon from James Cook University, Singapore. Thank you very much for having me with you today on this webinar. Now, I'm asked to give an idea and some kind of comments on what is happening here in Singapore with the coronavirus pandemic. And I think, first of all, we needed to understand the context of how the situation then evolved over here. The first wave of cases actually happened in the very early stages of the pandemic, essentially during Chinese New Year festivities, where many people from China actually traveled over and visited Singapore. So those were where Singapore started having its early cases. And there was also a time during those early stages that Singapore was actually one of the countries with the most number of cases outside China. But the situation actually remained under control, and it remained so for a while. Till then, now in March, there was a second wave then of cases, which essentially were due to many Singaporeans and long-term pass holders who came back to Singapore from abroad. And that is where actually the situation started escalating, and the number of cases ramped up on a daily basis. And also the first casualties also were recorded. So this is where then the government started thinking of some possible also smart strategies to tackle the problem and try to get closer to some sort of solution. So one of these of the strategies that were implemented was via some app that was called TraceTogether. This was published by the Government Technology Agency for both Android and iOS devices. And essentially is an app that, once downloaded, allows to track who you are getting close with in terms of devices and so on, in physical proximity. It's an app that has been downloaded about 1 million times, I believe, and Singapore has about 5.5 million people. So we can say the adoption was okay, but of course it's not something that everyone has installed on their phone. When we have this kind of solution, though, it's always then a kind of fine balance that we have to strike between the effectiveness and its purpose, and instead also a kind of invasion of privacy on the individuals that are essentially exposing all their data and their location and with whom they are meeting and so on and so forth. So this is something that I believe was done very consciously here, because all the records that the apps keeps are only stored locally on the user's phone, so they are not going to be sent to the authorities. And also the app does not track the actual location or the actual contacts and the other people, for example, phone numbers that you have met or just got closer to. Also, the data is going to be stored only for 21 days, and essentially no sensible data are going to be distributed anywhere. We all remain local to the phone. And moreover, also the users will only be asked to share those records only if they are contacted by the government, by the Ministry of Health, in case there is some contact traces to link a possible case of the infection. In this case, though, the person is legally obliged to comply and to provide all the data and information needed. Otherwise, there can be legal consequences as well. So we can say that this probably helped in tracing back many of the cases that we are experiencing these days. But there are still many cases that seems to be unlinked. And this is also why the government just yesterday, actually the other day, decided to go for a sort of circuit breaker kind of solution. So we are entering almost a lockdown, where almost all activities will be closed. Most companies are required to work from home. All schools will be teaching online, and we are going to have home-based learning. So we are going to have some big change in our daily lifestyles, and hopefully this, of course, with the technology, but also some good old-fashioned prevention of stay home and limit exposure to crowded places and so on will actually help in tackle the pandemic. So this is essentially all we've been now be doing in Singapore, how we are trying to get out of this situation, and hopefully in a few weeks then the situation would really start to improve. Thank you for your attention.